There are cost blowouts, and then there is the Inland Rail Link project. The Albanese government has now effectively scrapped the northern half of the once grand Melbourne to Brisbane Inland Rail project, Australia's biggest national infrastructure project, after a fresh assessment found that the full build would cost at least $45 billion and would not be finished for another 10 years. Now, this was meant to be a nation-building freight corridor, a 1,600 kilometre rail spine linking Melbourne and Brisbane through regional Australia. Faster freight, fewer trucks, safer roads, better access for farmers and exporters, a major productivity boost for the nation. Instead, it has become another case study in how Australia manages to turn big infrastructure promises into slow-moving bureaucratic disasters, or in this case, dead in its tracks. Now, we've been warning about this for some time. In our previous broadcast on the Inland Rail cost blowout, we noted how the project had already spiraled from the original budget of around $16 billion to more than $31 billion. And that was bad enough. But now the number is $45 billion plus, more than 4 times the original estimate. After years of planning, after years of political chest beating, after construction has already been underway for 8 years, after billions have already been spent. The project began construction in 2018, yet by 2024, only 17% of the planned line had been built, according to one report. But another report said it was 436 kilometres, or 27% of the planned route of the corridor had been completed. Either way, the result is the same. Years of work, billions in public money, and a project still nowhere near delivering what was promised. The Queensland section has now been axed from federal funding. That means the route north of Parkes through to the New South Wales-Queensland border, then to Toowoomba, then to a location south of Brisbane, has been shelved indefinitely. They tell us that the corridor will be preserved and future intermodal terminal sites at Gowrie and Ebenezer will be protected. But that's bureaucratic language for we're not building it. The new plan is to complete the southern section from Beveridge near Melbourne to Parkes in New South Wales by the end of 2027. And this will allow double-stacked freight trains to run between Melbourne and Perth via Parkes. Now, is that useful? Well, possibly, but is it the original project that was intended? No, not even close. This is no longer Melbourne to Brisbane Inland Rail. It's Melbourne to Parkes with a political press release attached. Infrastructure Minister Catherine King says the government is making sensible decisions and will redirect $1.75 billion into upgrading the Australian Rail Track Corporation network. Another $55 million will be used to encourage more freight onto rail and ships. But taxpayers are entitled to ask a more basic question. How did all this happen? How does a project of this size get announced, promoted, funded, reviewed, revised, and partly built for 8 years before government finally admits the full version is unaffordable and years behind schedule? The 2023 Kerry-Schott review found major deficiencies in governance and delivery. The latest assessment puts the total cost above $45 billion. Environmental approvals for all 4 Queensland sections are still outstanding, despite the original proposal having them being built by 2025. So this is not just a cost problem, it's a competence problem. And the political blame game has already started. Labor blames the former coalition government for an unfunded, unplanned mess. The coalition says Labor has killed a nationally significant productivity project. Queensland politicians from both sides are calling it disappointing. And they're all partly right. But the real loser is the taxpayer. Together we've spent untold billions on a project that will never be delivered. The other loser is regional Australia. Farmers, exporters and freight operators were told this line would transform access to markets and to ports. Queensland was told it would be part of a national freight solution. Motorists were told it would remove large number of trucks from the roads. Now they get another half-built promise. Now, Australia desperately needs long-term infrastructure planning. What it keeps getting is short-term politics, weak scoping, shifting budgets, poor accountability and reviews that arrive after the damage is done. Inland Rail was supposed to move freight, but instead it's moved the goalposts. And as is always the case with infrastructure cost blowouts, no one will be held accountable.